Stephen. Hi, everybody. This is the Nantucket Finance Committee. It's Tuesday, February 17th. It's 4:01 p.m. And can we do a call to order? We have Joanna Roche.
Hi.
Just stay here. Yeah.
Hi, here.
Joe Wright,
Aye.
Jeremy Bloomer,
Aye.
Chris Glowacki,
Here.
Martin McCarrow,
Aye.
and Jill Veith is here. Next up, we have, sorry guys, I got to go back and forth to do this remote. This meeting is being audio video recorded. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And on that motion, Joe Wright,
Aye.
Jeremy Bloomer,
Aye.
Joanna Roche,
Hi.
Chris Glowacki,
Aye.
Martin McCarrow,
Aye.
and Jill Veith is an aye. I'm going to open this up for public comment. And I'm going to close public comment. Okay, so today we are going to go right into the Health and Human Services contract. And I think we have Jericho Millet and Veronica are both here to talk about that. And then they also have a warrant article for a small change in their governing authority. And with that, I'd like to open it up to Veronica and Jericho, although I don't see that Jericho
Yep.
is on.
I'm trying to get the owl to face our way. Can you hear me?
Oh, you two are together. Sorry.
Yes, we're together. We're in the trailer.
Oh, great. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate it. And please feel free to jump in and tell us about the year you've had and your report.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Veronica Volchik, and I'm the chairperson of both the Contract Review Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Council for Human Services, and I chair both of those groups. Today, we're here to talk about the appropriation, which is Article 9, which is Health and Human Services, and to talk about the results of our grant process, which took place this past, basically from July until December. And first of all, as I said, Contract Review is a subcommittee of CHS. And its composition are 2 members from CHS, which is the Council for Human Services, and I am one of those 2 appointees onto CRC. Then we have a member who is appointed from your committee, which is Joanna from FinCom. And then we have a seat with NPEDC, which has not been filled. And then we have 3 members at large that hold 3-year terms. So that's the composition of our committee. Basically, before we get into what we did this year, I'm going to turn it over to Jericho, who's going to talk about the year in grants. That is just some background information. Then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of what we did.
So I will very quickly run through the year in grants, which is a chaotic one. There were major structural changes in the federal grant disbursement process. There were clawbacks. There were interruptions in delivery of WIC and SNAP benefits. And there was a huge amount of uncertainty in previously allocated money. There's also been an increase in service delivery costs that has outpaced inflation for another year running. So costs have increased as well. Aside from that, the specific changes to insurance, specifically Medicaid, as well as the uncertainty in federal grants, which then trickle down to state grants, which then trickle down to local service delivery, means that it was an erratic and kind of chaotic year that will likely continue into next year. Do you want me to get into the specifics of our grant requests, or do you want to just go?
No, we'll go into that. I'll do that.
And then that's largely the year in review for grants. I'm sure that most people on FinCom are aware of that, and probably several people are intimately aware of how erratic grants and insurance have been this year. Introducing uncertainty into nonprofits on the island makes things more complicated, and it means that we have to be a little more nimble in allocating funds when we get to deliberations for local grants.
Okay. Chair, I don't know if you have our report that could be pulled up so your members can see.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Stephen can pull it up. We had that in our packet as well, so people had access to it to read.
Okay, thank
I
you.
love the graphics, Jericho. Good job.
I'm working on
Thank
it.
you. Yeah,
My
Look
Canva
good.
workout.
good.
Colorful. Colorful. Like
Thank
that.
you.
Jim,
It makes
I have a
makes
question.
reading a little bit
Jericho.
easier, especially.
Wait, Jeremy, I'm going to let them go through the presentation and then do questions at the
Fine,
end.
fine, fine.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so this is Veronica again, and what I'm going to review is basically our fiscal year 27 timeline. So contract review committee, we have our heaviest work between the end of the summer and the beginning of the year. So between August and December, what you're going to be looking at on the screen there is an overall view of what we've done. So at the end of a grant cycle, which just took place, we do a general overall review. What worked, what didn't work, how could we improve things? Out of that came a few things back in August of 25. And we made some changes to the grant parameters. First thing was we put a cap of $100,000 onto any one application. We certainly are all aware that we have a limited amount of funds. Our needs are great, but it just seems that it was not appropriate to award half of our money to one organization when we're trying to meet so many needs. So we put a cap for the first time this year of $100,000 on any one proposal. The second thing, we developed a new category of a grant called an operational grant, or some people may refer to as a capacity grant. Our typical human services grants that we have awarded for years have been program grants. So when you review an application, the organization talks about funding a specific project or a program. But we recognize that there are some organizations that have been in existence for many years and also have a budget, a minimum of $500,000 of a budget, and they may just need funding to help their growth, their capacity. So that was the first time that we have had a new category of an organizational grant. And we did have a handful of organizations that applied in that category. And then we had our regular program grants, which are the human services. And then we had a separate category, which we have had, which are the substance misuse grants. So that all was decided back in August. In September, we adjusted our application to reflect the new categories and the information we had. We adopted a rubric, which also reflects the changes, and also we reviewed our rubric that we've used the past 2 years and made some changes because we recognize that that is a vital piece of our deliberation. We try to, grant reviews and grants are a very subjective matter. And we are trying to make it more objective than subjective. And using a rubric is one of those ways that we can classify and then compare. And so we added some categories in there, and just with comments that we had from our committee. So we adopted that. Jericho's shaking his head. I realize he wants to say something.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to add on. We actually worked with Sarah Wright, who is also on the Council for Human Services, to revise and consolidate a lot of the grant categories that had been problems, both in the opioid remediation grant process, and then as well trying to do a one size fits all for all of our grants meant that the rubric could be improved. We've incorporated a lot of, we've retitled them. There's a separate section in the appendix that has all the rubrics and the specifics for them. And then we kind of have gotten a little closer in accord with best practices that we've seen in other grant processes in how the rubric is phrased, how the evaluation process is done, and how we kind of weight the different topics.
Right. And to that point, the Council for Human Services is the umbrella that CRC falls under, and CHS has gotten much more involved this past year with one of the members taking on a challenge of helping to improve the rubric. Additionally, we have members of that committee divided up into our different market segments, if we call it that, and becoming sort of a resource for CRC, because it's a heavy lift for the members of CRC. You know, I have my binder in front of me, which is about 2 inches thick, of all the grant applications. And it's not just reading the grants, but it is learning the market segment, the area, whether it's healthcare, behavioral health. So we have CHS becoming the subject experts to help CRC. So just back to our timeline now. In September, we did for the first time a award ceremony, which was for fiscal year 26, where we called all of the grant recipients to a lovely ceremony that was hosted at the Dreamland. And our goal there was to number one, make more awareness of the town supporting programs. And it was a successful day. It was nice for people to just have the opportunity to interact with each other, but the goal is just to do better public relations for how the town is supporting human services on the island. And our grants is a major way of that happening. So back to September, we also had our grant for fiscal year 27 release, and we had a bidders information session. So we call all the potential applicants together to answer questions, to talk about the changes that we had in the grant process this year. October, the grants all were due, and then we started the review process. And that happened from October through November. November, we had interviews with our grant applicants. And we started our deliberations. December, we deliberated, and we ultimately wrote the report that you have in front of you. So it sort of followed the timeline for 6 months of some heavy work. Going on to the next, we'll look at the actual request and awards. As you can see, and I'll go back to something from the first, our request just in the human services, which is the top part of that chart, we got 1.13 million in request for $650,000. of that 1.13, every single one of those programs were robust, excellent ideas, wonderful programs. But this is where deliberations comes in, where we only had 650,000. If you look over to the right side, the two pie charts, the top one is request by category, and we broke it down into 4 major areas: emergency needs, behavioral health, elder care, and healthcare. And the top is request, the bottom is awards by funding. And it doesn't overlay exactly, but it's a general, we pretty well tried matching the request with what was funded. I'm gonna divert for a second. One of the other things that the town has graciously supported, we currently are running a human services needs assessment. You may have seen it pop up here and there. Hopefully over the next 2 months, you'll see it a whole lot more. I appreciate anyone who has filled out the survey, but a needs assessment has not been done in many years.
Let me
Jericho?
clarify that. This specific comprehensive community needs assessment
Right.
has not been done. There have been a large number of surveys done, none quite hitting this particular category.
Right, and we have an outside organization by the name of Kulik.
Mhm.
Who has been on island, and the goal is to have this done by
May
May.
2nd. Well, probably first week of May.
Right,
We're currently in the midst of data collection for this needs assessment. The contractor will be on site again in end of April or early May in order to do some additional focus groups and interviews. We're shooting for 380 N for statistical significance. And we're at about 270 right now, with a couple of new avenues of outreach that we're going to try in the next couple of months. That survey project is an output of the previous Raftellus consultancy that did a look at the internal functioning and processes of the contract review committee grants, and was one of the outputs of and recommendations from that previous study. We will have the results and analysis back before we begin the FY28 grant processes, which we will use to sort of determine individual needs when it comes to a grant deliberation process, and potentially to make subcategories within the human services funding, similar to how we did with the cannabis, sorry, not the cannabis, the opioid remediation act, where we had one pool for prevention and one pool for treatment. We may break it down into something similar to these different sector categories that you see in the pie chart in front of you, which we chose so that we can align with the community foundation's work, so that we can be sharing information that's closer to apples to apples.
right. And the people that we're trying to reach, we have a minimum of just under 400. It would be wonderful if we had many more. It is full-time island residents. We want to reach our part-time island residents, and we also want to reach our seasonal workers, because all of those are people that use the human services agencies and resources on the island. So we really want to get, and also beyond just our English language speakers, but our Latina and Portuguese and other segments of our community. So that is an ongoing project right now, and that will help us to ultimately have more information of, should we be funding X more heavily than Y to match up to the needs of the community. So back to what we're looking at, you can see the yellow shading is what was awarded. Next to it is the request. Deliberations were difficult because of as I said, each applicant had a robust need. So we needed to make sure that we were stretching the money to all categories. We also, made a little bit of a change. We had some discussion with, although what you're looking at is not certain until it actually, shows up at town meeting in a positive, vote. But for planning purposes, a lot of these organizations not only depend on money that they get from the town, but other funding sources. So we have notified with the caveat that it's not certain until town meeting what their award is, so they can use that in helping for planning purposes to run their organization for the year. And that's something new that we did this year also. And that was, after much discussion with both of our committees. So, the top part is human services, the bottom part is our substance misuse awards, which is separate than the 650 of human services. We had 175,000 for substance misuse. And in that category, if you notice, there were two that did not get funded. It's very difficult for the committee to say no to anyone. And when we looked at this, the hard thing, we recognize that there's a lot of effort that goes into this. And if you go back to what I said before, one of the things we are going to be adding into our process for next year is a letter of intent. So before we start the cycle in September, we'll have office hours for people to just discuss, I have this idea, it potentially will require X amount of money, and without going through an entire review, it will help the applicant. We don't want people to waste their time, but we also don't want to use that as the deciding factor, but just to give some guidance. And an example is, we had some pretty hefty awards, people asking for $100,000. And that said, to us that maybe we also need to discuss a little bit more in depth that the maximum award will be $100,000, but that doesn't mean that you should be asking for $100,000 because it just makes the whole process more difficult. So better communication, more communication with applicants is what our goal is. Jericho, Ed, anything?
I should do something just so that Brian doesn't get agita. Before we do any of this, we're gonna, similar to how we did last year, we'll be getting in touch to make sure that we are fully comporting with all the necessary requirements for the grant process here.
Okay. If you want to just move ahead, I'm gonna skip above the conclusions to just look. We have copies of our rubric that you can see. And then after that, Appendix 2 is the rubric scoring, which we take all the everyone's responses, and we have an is it aggregate? What would we call this?
Average.
Average is put in, and then after we use this as part of our deliberations. So you can see the results of the rubric. And lastly is one thing that came out last year at town meeting. We live in this world, so we understand what MVCS or some of the alphabet soup here is. But we recognize that the public may not understand that. So we wanted to add a little bit more in a description of what it is. And Jericho and I reviewing this earlier, we may want to even add a little bit into this. So the public understands what Martha's Vineyard Community Services and what is Martha's Vineyard doing on the island and what that organization does. So that is the appendix 3 that you have.
And then I can do a couple of the more unusual ones here, and
Yes.
then I think we're probably good for questions.
Yes.
So there are a couple of interesting highlights. One of the original and historic missions of the Contract Review Committee grants is to incentivize and support new or experimental programs that would otherwise.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, could I interrupt for one moment?
Yes,
Um,
please, John.
I would suggest that if there are any, if there's going to be any discussion about items where members may have a conflict, that we see if those are going to be discussed or if there are any questions first. And then Joe and who was it? Chris can recuse, and you can have that discussion and then go back to the rest of the list if that works.
Yeah, that's great. So when he finishes, I'll just go ahead and open it up I'll ask Chris and Joe.
Jill, do you have a quorum with us now?
Well, we have the same number, so we have 6 people. And you two will recuse during question and discussion.
Okay,
But
but you don't, I was just gonna recuse for the whole thing, but if that creates a problem.
We'd have to wait for another meeting, I think.
Yeah, no, we can do it. I may just abstain from the vote though.
So I also think, Jill, that if Jericho is going to talk about either of or any of the items where there is a potential conflict, we should know that up front so that the individual can recuse, not just for the question and answer, but any presentation that's going to be made.
Okay.
Hey,
Perhaps
Jill, it's
So
Jeremy.
maybe Chris and Joe both want to, do
Or
you
Jill.
want them?
Jill, can I ask John a question?
Okay, Jeremy. I
John,
think everybody's on a board, John.
John, you have spoken to this before about conflicts, and there's the state ethics thing. But in my particular case, I am on the board of one of the recipients of these funds. It's a not-for-profit. I have no compensation. It's all volunteer.
Yeah, we're all in the same
And I
case, Jeremy. That's what we were just
Yeah,
discussing.
Jeremy, Joe and Chris are as well.
So why don't we take those
Oh,
first?
I understand.
And you all are, you still need to maintain a quorum. So why don't we start, if I could suggest, Chris, what is the grant recipient?
Mine would be the CSBH on the board there, but I was going to suggest if any members have questions about particular grants, they could name them, and then we could just decide. And if they don't, we could just go to a motion and a vote.
Right. Okay.
Jill, what do you think about that? If any committee members have questions about specific ones, they can say what those are. If we have to recuse, we can. If not, we can just go to a vote and get this done.
But
Yeah.
Chris, my recollection of something John has told us in years past is even though we're on the board of these charities and we're on the finance committee, I thought, John, there were some exceptions that the state of Massachusetts Ethics Committee had, so we don't need to recuse ourselves. Jeremy, you're probably referring to sort of an analysis that the State Ethics Commission has done and has said where a nonprofit entity may not be a business organization for purposes of the conflict law, so there would not be a conflict, there would not be a prohibited financial interest, but you have to go through a bit of an analysis in order to conclude that definitively. So I think you're here. This is before you. I think it's best that that anyone who is on a board, even if that's of course they're all nonprofits, but that they just recuse for purposes of this discussion today. And if in the future you want to have a specific analysis, we can take a look at that sort of ahead of time. But I don't think it lends itself to doing that at this meeting. So, and the other thing is, even if it is not a quote unquote business organization, we would always recommend that you file a disclosure with your appointing authority, and that we don't have time to do here, obviously. So,
I'm happy just to go to questions, and then if there's any conflicts that pop up from there, that might seems like it's easier than me doing a
Yeah.
presentation and inadvertently running into a conflict.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
so are there any questions on any of the agencies or programs?
Or process.
Well, it sounds like Joanna, Jill, and Martin are the only ones who can ask questions. Is that how I understand it?
Not exactly, Jill. And I'm
I mean,
sorry.
they can ask for things that aren't related to what they're on the board of.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Jill, I do. It's Jeremy.
Go for it, Jeremy.
Jericho, you get 650,000 in one program and 175,000 in the addiction services program. Is that correct? And
That
that's
is
all
correct.
from the town? And do
Yeah,
you get any,
Oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
when you started, you talked a lot about the grant chaos in the world. But I don't think we disperse any federal or state grants. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the grant chaos, if you will, just causes greater demand for your services, but everything comes straight from Nantucket.
Correct.
Well,
Although there
it's-
were
I'm sorry, it's a bit more complicated than that, Jeremy. And Jericho, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but
please.
there are any number of grants that the town receives from the federal and state. Well, let's just talk about the state, the federal government, because that's where the problem is. And there are certain requirements of contained within grant agreements that come from the federal government that could potentially pose a problem if the town was funding a grant that was deemed by the federal government. And I'm just going to use this as an example. We've all heard about the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion restrictions that the federal government has placed on certain expenditures. So it is possible that even though these are not expressly funded through federal grants, it is possible that they could present a problem if any one of these programs runs afoul of some of the executive orders that have been issued. And I don't know if that's the case here or not. So it's a little bit more complicated, Jeremy, than the way you stated it.
Got it.
I can speak to oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jericho.
I was gonna say, I can speak to the, has it happened here? We do have several agencies that have not had funding released to them that was from the federal government, that was a backstop or component to programming that was partially funded by the town grant. And I'm thinking specifically of Health Imperatives here, which had a significant shortfall in funding, which impacted their ability to do some of the other work that was directly grant funded here. Additionally, it means that there is a increase in demand, but there's also a decrease in certainty of reimbursement from outside sources, which is one of the reasons we looked for the operational grant to be slightly more flexible. When we get to the actual terms of the agreement this year, there'll be some restrictions, but it is acceptable for it to be used operationally to cover a shortfall in another area if that's pre-identified.
Got it. Understood. So maybe my last question, and John, thank you for that clarification. So there are potentially some constraints that the town's state or federal grants could have on what it does downstream. But we know if any of the $825,000 that comes into the CRC for this program, is any of that funded, I guess, indirectly by other, or does it come all of it directly from the town?
To my knowledge, the funding sources are the local tax basin for the Contract Review Committee's human services. Then there's special stabilization fund money, potentially being supplemented by Opioid Remediation Act. I do not know what the remediation settlement money interacts with, but to my knowledge, no. But Brian would be a much better person to ask.
Exactly.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
Yes.
There is no federal funds within the 825,000. So we have no issues or risk associated with any of the new administration's requirements related to federal grants with Article 9.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. It's all very well needed.
Thank
So
you.
can I ask about the operational grant and what that pays for?
Operations. But in the sense that in the past, a lot of our applicants have been coming for a program that had associated operational costs that they were connecting directly to that program. This allows the use cases that were not generally part of the process beforehand. The best way I can explain it is by example. This year, Fairwinds, traditionally they come to us for sliding fee scale coverage for their local psychiatry program, whereas this year they came with an operational grant in order to upgrade their
IT system.
their IT system to get some legally compliant medical records management software, to do cybersecurity training. These are the kind of enabling costs that allow them to focus other funding sources on service provision, and then also allow them to build like core backbone capacity, ideally, that allows them to do more with less in the future.
So this isn't really salaries and rents. This is more day-to-day operations, more administrative, for lack of a better word.
So that is the preferred expense. But if it comes to a salary that is core to them delivering the rest of their services, it would be included under this. It's more allows for some more flexibility inside the year. Since we have not administered the operational grant for a year, I don't know. I don't have any additional history to share with that or likely issues. It is going to be a bit of an experiment this year on that front, but we do have very specific reporting terms and we have very specific accomplishment terms that are going to be included in the agreement.
And we are tracking that through the quarterly reports that are provided by each of the grant recipients. So because it is something new this year, we are keeping a extra close eye on how it is reported and how the money is being spent.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Jill, I want to just make a couple comments.
Yes, sure.
I think that it's really important for us to recognize Jericho and Veronica because they did a really exceptional job on this. I mean, this is, I think, my 5th year doing this, and the improvements that we've made in the process have been extremely significant. It is much more efficient, and I feel like we have really gotten to the issues in a much more clear way. I think pulling out and capping the organizations that we would give $100,000 to was a smart decision by the group. It helps us actually really work the money harder, because it's effective. And I think that this piece about separating operations and capacity building also makes a lot of sense. And I think most importantly, that the piece where they did the award ceremony this year, I think that was really meaningful to the community. And I think that the most Nantucket residents don't really understand how much the town gives back. And this is the way this is the mechanism through which we have to do that. And it's really important that people understand that the town of Nantucket supports all these organizations. And it's not just a little bit of money, it's a lot of money. So I say thank you to them, and it's my pleasure to work on this committee.
That's great. I do have another question about the Interfaith Council. Is that restricted to a certain aspect of what they do? Or I was on that committee for 1 year, and I think the money usually went to the food pantry, but is that grant for food, fuel, and rental assistance?
Yes, it is, Jill.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it goes to the whole program. It's
Whole
not.
program. It's not just the food pantry.
Gotcha.
They do a significant amount of work in housing and in the fuel, and they also have some medical transport that also happens through some funds they get. So,
Oh, really interesting.
yeah.
Well, since I've been on, I can tell you've really broadened your reach. I mean, I think that's what's so interesting about what's going on and the changes you're making, just to amplify what Joanna said. I mean, I think we always had excellent groups ask for grants, but the way you've set it up, it seems like it's inviting more requests and applications, and which is helping you understand what's going on the island as well.
Thank
It
Thank
seems
you.
like fantastic. So I love how
It's-
organized it is. So thanks for all your hard work. We're really appreciative.
Well, thank you, Jill. And I have to say, of all the volunteer work that I've done in my life, this is probably some of the most rewarding that I have been involved with. And if this is a perfect segue going into the next item, if there's no other questions, which is the amended bylaw.
Yes,
For
yes,
Article
please.
69. For Article 69. So
Should we vote on this first? Are these two different articles and two different motions?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, they are, but we can wait till she goes through that and then do it. It's fine.
Okay, thank you. So the Contract Review Committee, there by our charter, there are 7 seats. For the past 2 years, we have only had 6 members. NPEDC has not been able to appoint one of their members to sit on this committee. With knowing the difficulty we've had, I did a study this year of just how much time our members are putting into this. And we have a new at-large committee member, which I figured he would be the best to judge, since coming into this with no background information. And he happens to be an attorney, so I figured he knows how to keep track of billable hours. So he reported back that it was about 40 to 45 hours from the beginning of July till December that he dedicated to this committee. Knowing that, compared to some committee assignments, it's a pretty heavy lift, and a heavy lift during a time of year. It's very concentrated in September through December. We just have not been able to have that seat filled by NPEDC. And with the help of our select board, looking at Article 69, removing one line from the article, which says to be a member, crossed out, and just have it that NPEDC can appoint someone to sit on this committee. I think it's very important to have different points of view. Having someone from finance and Joanna sitting our committee, she brings a point of view that, coming from human services, I don't necessarily have. And by having different points of view from different angles, and someone involved with planning and economic development is going to have a different view on the health of our community that we don't have. So having someone even just appointed by them, whether it is someone that works in planning or someone that they feel will contribute best to this group, is one way that we could get a full committee. Without having a full committee, it really puts us at a danger of not having quorum or not having a robust deliberation. I think we have done it, but sometimes we squeak through by the skin of our teeth. So, I would hope that this can be supported. Jericho, you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think there's a lot of change going on in NPDC that really points to the benefits of a lot of collaboration between different agencies. Having someone from NPDC or someone who's aware and connected to them will definitely allow long-term issues or long-term planning to have a slightly more like to really influence our decisions in a way. And more importantly, I think it communicates out what's happening in human service spaces to planning, which really can only improve both.
I agree. Do we have any questions about this from the committee?
I mean, I have a comment about it when the time comes, but,
Okay, well, we could do
Whatever
that
you're ready
during
for.
the motion. I just wanted
Okay.
to, yeah, I mean, I just feel like you can make your comment now if you want, Chris, sorry.
no, that's fine. Whatever works for you, Jill. I think we're heading in a bad direction, right? With this is the second time this has come up, right? Because this is part of the MPDC's plan for the planning appointment of the MPDC, right? This issue of we're not going to have one of our members join another committee. We're going to appoint a member. I think we are losing a lot of value of having this cross population, right? The point of having Joanna on as an appointed member to Health and Human Services is she sits in the FinCom deliberation. She's knowledgeable about how FinCom is looking at things. She can bring that expertise to those meetings. Likewise, I think it's part of the most valuable part of our committee is the committee reports we get back that are updates on what are going on in the committees. And an appointed member is not going to do that. And I don't think the MPDC has any special expertise as an appointer. I get the issue here, and I am very sensitive to the CRC's issue of wanting a full committee, but having a bunch of committees appointing people who are not on their committees to other committees to me seems like we're going down a path of something very cumbersome, not value added. I would just give the appointment back to the select board. They're the elected board, right? The MPDC is a bunch of, many of whom may be appointed already. And they're not necessarily experts at appointments. If we're going to do that, put it back on the select board if the MPDC doesn't see the value of having one of their members on this committee. I'm less worried about this one in specific, but it's come up twice now in this period, and I just hate to see us go down this path, which to me seems
Maybe that's next
not
year.
a good approach.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone else on the committee have a comment or a question? Okay, so let's go back to the report. And sorry, I don't have the number. It's Article 9. And I want to make sure we have enough people. Well, just to clarify, John, everybody can vote on the whole amount, correct? Sorry, did we lose Mr. Giorgio?
I believe that's what he said, though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes, everyone can vote on the bottom line for the 825,000.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with that, is there someone that wants to make a motion on Article 9?
I will.
Jill, first, should we disclose anything? Do we need to disclose that we know something about each of these things or not?
I'm looking at Mr. Giorgio for that, Jeremy.
I think that would not be a bad idea, Jeremy. So if any member of the Finance Committee is an officer or director, I believe that was the issue, right? Or has a relative who's an officer or director. For the record, they should state that on the record.
Okay, Jeremy, you want to state that?
Yeah, I'm a director and the treasurer of PASCON.
Okay, Chris Glowacki, do you want to state your
Yeah,
conflict?
I'm a director of Community Solutions for Behavioral Health, which I believe is referred to as CSBH in the schedule.
Yes, and Joe, right? Is Joe there?
Yes,
I can't
he's muted.
He's muted.
Joe, you're muted, honey.
I'm a candidate for the board of the Lighthouse School, and my daughter works with a safe place. She works with visiting nurses, and she works for Addiction Solutions. She's an employee of visiting nurses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think that's sufficient, Jill.
All right, well, next time we'll try to remind everyone to do disclosures.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be better, a better practice. But you can all vote on the motion to approve Article 9 as shown on the screen, if that's the motion.
Yes, so with that, Joanna, were you going to make a motion?
Yes, I move to approve Article 9 in the amount of $825,000.
I'll second that.
Great, on your motion, Joanna.
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Martin, Chris,
Aye.
Sorry.
Joe,
Aye.
Martin's an aye, and Jill's an aye. That's great. And on the next one, it's Article. What number is the
69.
change?
16.
69.
69, sorry. Yes, can I get a motion on that? Or do y'all want to discuss it and then make a motion?
Who is proposing this?
It's put forward by the select board.
I move take no action.
Is there a second for that?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I'm not, I mean, I understand. I just want to go back to Chris's point, which I think is valuable. So I think the purpose of this was to try to get the NP and EDC to make their appointment. And I think that if we can't, Chris is right, if we can't force them to do that, then somebody else should make the appointment. So how do we solve what's the best way to solve the problem is really the question.
I liked Chris's idea. I agree with you, Joanna, on this. I like Chris's idea. Give it back to the select board. I think
Can't force somebody to make an appointment.
Okay.
I mean,
you can give that right to the select board. They certainly can make that.
in the context of every single thing that we've been discussing about the NP and EDC, this just seems to be,
It seems to come up too often.
right.
Well, why shouldn't we have someone from that, the NPEDC, explain that they're in favor or against this?
Well, we could, but they're also they have a meeting at 5 o'clock, I think. So I don't think we're going to hear from them today. I mean, we could do a take no. I mean, we could do lots of things, but we could also do a take no action and make a comment. And
The second thing on this is that I don't know to what extent anybody's looked at this closely enough. We've got two competing planning board articles coming before town meeting this time. I don't know if does this affect both of them? I think it probably does.
Madam Chair, I have to interject very quickly. We have to exit this room. We'll be back on in 2 seconds. Please please bear with us.
okay. So both of the trailer rooms were available today, or they're not. Yours is not available now, right? Gotcha. Chris, you like a comment?
Yeah, I mean, so I threw the hand grenade in this, sorry. But I will say, since it's a select board is bringing this forward, I hate to blow it up without sort of having had the benefit of discussing it with them, the notion that this should go back to them,
Right.
So, I will offer my comment as general guidance as we have this issue come up again and again, if we want to approve this and leave it to maybe be switched down the line. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
The town
be as
manager's
pragmatic as
on, so she
possible.
might want to make a comment too.
I don't think the board's going to want to have too much discussion about it. I think they feel like the article speaks for itself, and they got a request from the Council for Human Services that they weren't getting an appointee from planning. So that was the suggested action. And they just took the action. I don't see them having lots of more discussion about this. If you all think that it would be a better idea for the select board to make the appointment instead, then maybe recommend that, that in your motion.
Yeah, like to take no action with a comment or something like that.
Or something like if the planning commission doesn't make an appointment, the select board is authorized to. That could be probably a simple modification to the proposed bylaw in your motion.
That sounds like more of an amendment though, right?
It would be an amendment, yeah. But you could make the amendment in a motion.
Did the select board, did you all ever talk about it? I don't remember it coming up at a select board meeting, but
Well, that's how it got on. So yeah, they did talk about it.
I don't remember what their discussion on that was.
Well, the discussion was basically that the Council for Human Services, and when they come back on, they can probably explain it a little bit better. But and in fact, I think that Veronica might already have explained it. And I'm not taking any kind of position one way or the other. I hear what Chris is saying about it.
Sure.
They were requested by the Council for Human Services to change the bylaw so that they would get a full membership, because they weren't getting that from the planning commission. So the select board said, okay, and that was what was proposed.
So I can
Okay.
speak a little more to that. It was a minimum viable change in any of the bylaws in order to have a consistent quorum. And in this instance, I was a shortest line to workable solution mode for that. And this is something that would have minimal, in my opinion, minimal consequences for the contract review committee. I cannot speak to its larger concerns around how it interacts with other town departments. I just know there's a full plate on in front of the MPDC for its restructuring, so I wanted to enact a plan that would allow me to have quorum consistently, is basically as far as I went with mine.
Yeah, I understand that, but I really do hear what Chris is saying.
Hey, Jill, it just
Yes.
strikes me that the NPEC should be commenting on this. I mean, they should come before, well.
Well, they made the request to the select board though, Jeremy, so I think the point is that is their comment. That's what they said that they wanted to do, or that's what Jericho worked out with them, it sounds like, and the select board said, okay. I do like what Chris is saying, so I hear that. If you all want to make a different kind of motion, or if you want to amend this, it's certainly something we can do. I think the most important thing for the CRC is that they have somebody who's reliable to show up.
Right.
So I think that's sort of the question. I don't know of other boards appointing other boards. I'm not as familiar with what boards are appointing other boards. We, like, as a committee, we name somebody from our committee to another committee. But that's usually a member of that committee, not a member of the public. So I don't know what kind of.
I'm also sensitive to the idea of the select board doing the appointing in that. That may end up turning into another at-large position functionally, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I just don't know what the process is for changing the bylaw change request at this point. And additionally, I am kind of focused on making sure that CRC is an operating process. And so I can't allow the larger concerns to be a major impact on where I stand on this particular one, because I really do need to get quorum consistently.
That's fine, but recognize that's what this is an at-large appointment.
Yeah, no, it is. So it's never my intent to have a end state for this grant process or for this board. It is always a process of refining and adjusting. Would knowing that this is a temporary measure and we'll be looking for a better, more representative adjustment next year be helpful?
Do you need a bylaw change to do that?
That's what I was just.
There is, to my knowledge, no way to change the
The makeup.
composition of the board without a bylaw change in one way or another.
Well, the one thing that occurs to me is that the makeup of the NPEDC actually might be changing. And so they also, one way or another, and whether their article passes or another one passes, the makeup of that board does change every year anyway, right? Because some of those are just 1-year appointments. Do you think that's at all possible that maybe they're going to get some new applicants who would want to come on to the CRC?
I can't speak to the functions of that board. I'm not particularly familiar with it. And I can't base decisions on one agency on what may happen in another agency or another organization.
Right.
How many years have they not had somebody appoint?
We haven't had someone for 2 solid cycles,
Previous to that, it was the same individual
and
for about 10 years. So I think it is a difficult responsibility for NPEDC to fit into like an already fairly large workload as a regulatory board. So I'm sympathetic to the change in staff if one person been doing it for a very long time. I've been unsuccessful in getting any action in terms of appointing a new member, and I've tried a couple of different ways.
Right.
Okay. Chris?
Jill, is the question that if we made our motion to put the struck out language back in and say that if they don't appoint someone by a certain date, it becomes part of the select board's appointing process, is it a question of whether that would be in scope and we could do that as part of our motion, or it's changing too much the printed warrant to have that be our motion?
If I may,
Please, John.
Madam Chair, of course, that question would ultimately be up to the moderator, but I think you could make a good argument that would be within the scope, because the way it's printed, the way the bylaw currently exists, there are appointments made by the select board. I think this change would simply be increasing that number if there's a failure by the commission to make the appointment by a certain date. So I think I would think it's within the scope, but that's ultimately up to the moderator to make that determination.
But couldn't that be a problem for them if the appointment dates are similar? NPEDC is supposed to appoint someone by what date?
Typically, we would
Your
say
work started in July.
July 1st.
Yeah. And the end of, like, usually the appointments for the select board are, end of June, middle of June. So
I think
We could take.
does
it
that
could be-
timing work for you?
It could be August 1st, that's fine, because with July 1st, and we have new, even with CHS, there's new members coming on, and then we vote someone in July to be on that, so, if it happens for August 1st, we could live with that. I guess our goal, and I know that we can't just put blinders on, but our goal is to have a robust committee. And, I am sensitive to what everyone is saying. So however we get there, I'd be happy.
when one of the current short to medium term goals of both CHS and CRC is to have some element of rotation
Right.
to who is serving on these boards, because that gives a solid picture of what's happening internally to a larger number of people, and it also helps with outreach and communication for the services being provided.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that would work, I think.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to share my own personal view on it, Chris. I really appreciate what you said. I think it's valid. My instinct is because of this crossover and this timeline, that could be challenging. They do have to post notices. They try to do appointments at select board, usually on the same night or close to the same night as they can. It seems like maybe we ought to give the NPEDC a chance. And if it doesn't work, if you have the same problem, I suggest maybe we go back for another change. I mean, it is a simple change, but that's my own personal view.
I can vote for this to allow this to go through for the CRPC, but it's the trend that really concerns me. And if we get to a place where all the boards say we're too busy and suddenly we're appointing someone to this and we're appointing someone to coastal resiliency, and I think that's a really bad trend for the way we run government.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have had the discussion, would love everyone to be aware of it. We'll vote for it. And, if that's what the rest of the committee decides, but don't like where it's going.
Valid. And also, I mean, we are going to be able to bring this up when we talk about those articles when they come back, which will not be on Thursday, by the way. Okay. Well, with that, does anybody want to make a motion, or do you all want to wait and do motions after we speak to them with their articles?
I don't really think it makes a difference either way.
I think this is what we have on the table for now.
Right. All right. So
I'll make a motion
motion
to accept,
to adopt.
to adopt.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
Okay. On your motion, Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
I
Martin? Did we lose Martin?
no,
Mr.
he's there.
He's muted.
Aye.
Chris, Joe Wright,
Aye.
and Jill's and I. So that passes. But again, I hear you, Chris. I think this is really valid.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, everybody. I guess I need to look at the agenda. What's next? That took a little longer than I thought. Jericho and Veronica, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all for what you do and for hearing our plea here. And I understand the complications of it, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that Chief Gibson's been waiting to talk about Article 14 with the Loran Barracks repairs. And if he would like to come on, if he's ready, then we're ready for him.
How are you? It was long.
Yeah, hi, Chief. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Take it away.
I'm really not sure what information you need. I'm prepared to answer any questions. I asked Greg and what the board was looking for.
I think a number of people went out and did the tour with you. I know that Joe did. I think Peter did. I did. I think Martin did. A number of people came out. So I do think there are a number of people on the committee that know what the situation is. But if you all want to jump into questions, you can. I'm comfortable with that, but I saw this at the Capital Committee, so.
Yeah, I mean, I could just start it off that this is just part of our multi-phase project out there. We probably back in 2018, we started with, we hired SMRT architects to do a complete building evaluation, and they gave us a plan to do the entire project. It required, the building is 70 years old, required maintenance that you would think of a 70-year-old building that is on the water. So the scope of that original design and engineering evaluation by SMRT was quite involved. And because we need the facility for housing our seasonal officers, we had to sort of take it in small bites so that we could do it in the off season, but yet have the building available for the summer. So this is why it's a multi-phase project. We started with the building envelope, and that's been completed in both. There's two buildings. There's the men's dorm and the women's dorm. We started with the building envelopes, doors and windows. The original building was cinder block. It still is, but we cladded it with insulation panels, and now it looks a little bit more part of the environment with white cedar shingles. So that phase was done in 2 phases, and part of that involved some hazmat remediation. That was done, and then we had to, we started again on the women's dorm. We did the mechanical systems. We replaced the oil and propane fired heating systems and hot water systems with electric heat pumps and in alignment with the town's energy goals to be more green, I guess. That the women's dorm is completed. If those that have been out there had a tour out there, we did create a couple of longer term apartments in addition to the dorm room facilities. And now one of the last big bite is the men's dorm that requires basically the same thing we did to the women's dorm, except it's at a greater scale because it's a bigger space. It's almost 2.5 times the space of the women's dorm, which requires on the men's dorm electrical system rebuild, installation of heating systems, heat pumps, and repairing the bathrooms. So to answer any questions that you like.
That's great. Thank you. Joe, right?
I would say, Madam Chair, you and I toured with Chief Gibson, the facility, and we did not see what was reported in the current. It looked like a place that had the potential to be upgraded, and I think my recollection is the number is about $7.5 million. There's no number in the article. Brian?
You mean the number for the debt exclusion?
Stevens put in the motion up, Joe, through you, Madam Chair. The article requests an appropriation of $5.4 million, and it is a debt exclusion as well. But we were going to put that up after we gave the committee a chance to ask any questions of Deputy Gibson.
Does anyone else have any questions about it?
Jill, I do.
Jeremy, please.
Chief, certainly I read that. I didn't get to take a tour, so that I don't have that benefit, but I did read what was in the paper. And many people, when they see this, will say, well, wait a second, we read this newspaper article and it looked like all this money was misspent and nothing ever got done right, and now we're being asked for more money. How should we respond to that? How much of that is misinformation? How much of it just needs to be augmented with new information?
Well, for those that were there, I'm sure the consensus would be it was misinformation. I think it was.
I would agree with that.
Taking of anecdotal stories from college students who were told, you're an adult and you need to live like an adult, and chose not to, and wasn't happy with their accommodations compared to what they expected or what they were used to. Sometimes, and I'm sure anyone who has children knows that sometimes when they get out on their own, they're not as responsible as one would hope. And we try to treat them as adults and leave them to their own devices. And if sometimes that doesn't work out, and in our sort of new environment of being a little bit more understanding, I suppose, we've had more of a hands-off approach to our seasonal residents out there, and some needed more guidance than others, and we weren't really prepared to treat them as we have treated others in the past. And they decided to take selective photos and give selective stories to the current, and the current chose not to follow up appropriately. They were there with the finance and select board members at the open houses that we had. Also, several members of the public that have been somewhat vocal during select board meetings, and no one chose to stand up and say, that's not true. And that's unfortunate. But those who came out and did have a firsthand view, I mean, we didn't say anything. The place speaks for itself. And anyone that wants to come out there, Mr. Bloomer, if you would like a tour, I will take you out there tomorrow.
I would be delighted. I would be delighted to go and see it. My questions are different. It's people will ask, wait a second. The town spent $8 million, and then we had this terrible article out here, and now we're spending another $5 million. what's going on. And
I agree. I mean, I do not, people are people and people will think what they think. Some people believe everything they see on the internet and it must be true. And unfortunately, we cannot control that narrative as well as we'd like to.
well, last question then.
Jeremy, trust your partners.
Got it. I trust. I know I get asked by people.
Jill and I were out there, and I think Jill, she can speak for herself, Madam Chair, but it did not look like what I read about.
Right.
Period, finished.
No.
And Brian, the $5 million, what exactly are the use of proceeds, or in big buckets to move this project forward?
Through you, Madam Chair, the deputy can speak to the specific work that the project that estimate is based on. If that's your question, Jeremy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, if I may, this is focused on the men's dorm. It involves specifically upgrading the electrical system. The electrical system was put in 1953. It's not code compliant. To move forward with installing heat pumps for the heating system, the electrical system has to be upgraded. Unfortunately, we're at a place that we have invested into the building itself more than 20% of its value, and required now to bring it up to code. And that involves bringing the electrical up to current standards to accommodate the heat pumps. Along with that, the toilet facilities has under the slab, it's a concrete slab. The piping is below the slab, and the piping is cast and it's flaked off on the inside. It's almost completely eroded on the inside of the piping. And to get at that, to replace it, the concrete slab has to come out. The toilets have to be replaced in the shower facility, and that's just because it's a 70-year-old building. Those are the two major cost items, plumbing and electric. And I'm sure you're all aware of the cost, especially for public work, for mechanical trades. And that's what the work is going to be.
Do we have a sense of the $5 million to do those two components, plumbing and electric? Because we are a municipality that owns this, and because so much work has already gone into it, what percent of that $5 million is due to the requirements of a municipality?
I probably would say at least 40%. It's Chapter 149A. It's the prevailing wages. We have to pay top union scale. And the problem we had with the previous phase with the women's dorm, we did not get a bid for the plumbing or electrical work. By law, it was a filed subtrade. We have to bid it out separately from the project, the way the general laws require. They call it filed sub-bids. So your mechanical trades have to be bid out independently, and then the general contractor who would do the carpentry work or the laborer work has to accept those bids. However, we didn't get a bid for the plumbing or electric, and we had to then do allowances. So now we're even beyond what prevailing wage is. We're at the mercy of any contractor, that the general contractor basically has to beg, will you come do this work? We bid on the job, and now we don't have a plumber or an electrician. And we're at a great disadvantage. When there is no bids, we can't even get competing bids, which is a giant problem on public work.
Town manager, did you have a comment you wanted to make? Your hand was raised.
I just wanted to mention that with regard to any project where there have been comments on social media or reported in the paper as fact, and it may not be total fact, that is a constant battle. It is not just limited to this project. There is a saying that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its boots on. That is a frequent quote at managers' meetings because it is so hard for municipalities to get the facts out as quickly as it gets out in other non-municipal ways. So our plan at town meeting is to have a point of contact for every town warrant article, every town sponsored warrant article. That point of contact individual will speak for 2 to 3 to 5, whatever our initial limit is. That might be 5 minutes, up to that, about the article, to explain it and then take questions. We are planning to have a podium down front somewhere, not exactly sure of its location, but that person will remain at the podium through the duration of the article and will answer questions and hopefully be able to correct any misinformation that is mentioned as a part of the discussion of the article. So we hope that that will help. The voter's guide will contain something similar about every article. And as we can, we try to correct or explain things that people either don't understand or have commented on at select board meetings, on social media, in the newspaper, through the town platforms that we've established, including a page we call For the Record, and our public comment responses. So we're doing our best to combat what you were talking about, Jeremy. But it is a never-ending battle.
I think that'll be very well received, Libby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And any other questions or comments? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion on Article
Yes.
14?
I move to accept Article 14.
A
Is there a
second.
second? Okay. And is there any discussion on the motion?
Board was
Okay,
very
okay.
helpful, that's all.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief. On your motion, Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
and Jill's and I. Chief Gibson, thank you.
Well, thank you. If you had anything on the Harbor Master Office while I'm here, is there any questions?
Two for one. 2 for 1.
Devin, that's not on the discussion agenda today. We'll let you know when we schedule it.
I'll be more than happy to go away.
Chief, I tried very hard
can
to put
stick
all
around
the
if
debt
you want.
exclusions on today.
All right, thank you.
That wasn't an option.
Good night.
Okay, we're not going to hear, I think, is Drew going to be on to talk about Article 16 for the Tom Nevers debris removal?
Madam Chair, that's correct. I think Drew is on, and I believe Charlie may be on with him
And
as
Charlie's
well.
on too? Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So I'll let Charlie introduce it, and I'll be here for any to support him and answer any questions you guys might have.
Great, Charlie. Let it rip.
Good evening, everybody. Just a little background. We are currently in phase 1 right now of this debris cleanup. We're working along the western edge of the Tom Nevers property and down along the beach to remove the large chunks of concrete and debris that are down there. We are cruising along a little bit ahead of schedule, which has been great news. So what we're looking for here is for funding for phase 2, which is to grab everything that's kind of north of the asphalt road, or what's left of the asphalt road along the coastline, to get that debris out of the ground before it ends up back on the beach. And then we're back down there trying to permit and everything else for there. It's much easier to get at this stuff upland than it is to go through all the different, 9 different permitting agencies, state and federal and local, once the stuff hits the beach. So we're hoping to do this before it gets to that point. We're in the process right now of getting a company out here to do a LiDAR and ground penetrating radar survey. And so we expect this actually hopefully to come in a little bit cheaper than the original cost. Once we get the ground penetrating radar done, we'll know what's in the ground, and we'll be able to get a tighter estimate on this.
Great.
So I guess if there's any questions.
We like to hear that it will come in cheaper, Charlie. That's always a good idea.
Madam Chair, what is the number? We should have a number.
Yes, do you?
It's
it's
eight,
like 8 million.
Madam Chair, through you to Joe's question. The request is for 8 million, and once questions are done, Joe, we'll put the warrant article, we'll put the motion up so you can see it, but it's $8 million is the request.
Thank you.
Jeremy, you have a question?
Yeah, I was curious, do we have any recourse after the fact to the federal government for making this mess? Does the Navy have money? Do we have to sue them separately in circuit court?
Madam Chair, I can try to answer that.
Sure, Drew.
So Jeremy, we've had a number of discussions with Senator Keating's office to try to get federal appropriation for cleanup at Tom Nevers. The last time they attempted to get that into a spending bill, what came out of it was a directive to do a study on what's going on at Tom Nevers and whether the federal government wants to do anything about it. I think there was a continuing resolution, and money was again not included in a spending bill. We had a call just early last week. I think in short, there is a very slim chance or outside chance that federal funding could be available. But I don't think it's best for us to plan on receiving that. Because there's certainly no guarantee that that we would receive federal funding. The other thing is that unfortunately, how long it takes to get federal funding doesn't really work with our local needs and our timeline. I think, Charlie was kind of highlighting what we're doing now is cleaning up the bluff and the beach and the western end of the parcel. The goal is, so there's a ramp that will also allow the DPW to continue to clean up the beach as further erosion continues and things fall onto the beach. At some point, the coastline is going to erode to the point where the ramp is no longer viable, and we'll kind of be back to square one where things are exposing themselves and ending up on the beach, and we will no longer have access to the beach to continue the cleanup. So I would like to say that there's an opportunity for federal funding, but if we miss the opportunity, we'll kind of be back to square one.
Yeah, it's my understanding that obviously you can try and get our senator or congressman to drop it in some appropriations bill. And given that we're from Massachusetts, that's not going to have a high probability of success. But what about a different strategy, a litigation strategy against the Navy? Because we are not the only community in the 50 states that will have had something built by the Navy that then falls apart. And have we explored any litigation strategy for that? Because there will be case law on this sort of thing.
I don't believe we have, not that I know of, as far as from a litigation standpoint. There are other avenues like formerly used defense sites or FUDs funding, but again, hasn't come to fruition. Libby, do you want to add something?
Yeah, we have not formally explored or evaluated the idea or concept of suing the Navy or the federal government for this. I don't think we'd be successful in that. I suppose we could talk to town council and explore that. Given how long it takes to get anything done at all with the federal government, it is not even going to be in our lifetime if there even was any sort of financial compensation for this later. The federal government cleaned up the Tom Nevers site years ago, 20 plus years ago. And maybe even more like 35 years ago. When I first started working here, there was they were at the tail end of cleaning up the Tom Nevers site and changing the name of it from the Navy base to Tom Nevers Park. And probably at that time, there was no ground penetrating radar. There hadn't been any kind of survey of unexploded ordnance in the overall site. And they believed they had cleaned it up. So obviously they didn't and haven't, and all of these things are now being exposed because of erosion and other environmental conditions. But I just see that as being, futile.
Almost
That
like
doesn't
that,
mean it's
when they
not, can't be
decommissioned the base,
explored.
they left all the underground stuff there, right? So we had this big metal tank that everyone was wondering what it was. It was basically an underground dumpster. It was full of trash. So anything that was underground when the Navy left is gone. So that's what we're pulling out now is, piping, concrete, foundations. We found 2 ordnance in the area. It's one was down in the water. It's hard to say if that drifted down from the rocket range further to the west. So we'll know once we get the GPR done with what we're using if there are ordnance there. But basically, really, we're chasing infrastructure that was left behind underground.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Libby. Joe, do you have a question?
Oh, it's Joe. What's the alternative? We either clean it up or we just leave it and let Mother Nature take her course. And that doesn't sound like a very good option. Libby?
Thank you. Does anybody else have sorry, Libby, if you want to respond to him. Okay. Does anyone else have a comment or a question? Is there a motion on this? Just a reminder, this is a debt exclusion.
Yes, Madam Chair, Stephen's putting it up now.
Okay.
So the motion would be to move to appropriate the sum of $8 million to be spent by the town manager with the approval of the select board. And I'm not going to read it all, but it is contingent on a successful ballot vote at the annual town election as well.
Yes.
Jill, I have just one question.
Okay.
In the event that we got some money from the federal government?
Then we just won't borrow it. You mean, can we get payback?
Yes.
Well,
how does that work?
Madam
Go
Madam
ahead,
Chair,
Brian.
through you, it's a little bit more nuanced than that because it would depend on the timing. If we received the money before we had permanently borrowed, then we would use that to pay off a part of the borrowing, and we wouldn't borrow the full value of the final cost. If we had issued the general obligation bonds, because it's a debt exclusion, DOR would likely make us take the amount of money we received and amortize it over the length of the general obligation bonds, thereby reducing the amount we raised in the taxes for the life of the debt. Would be, I believe, the way they would handle that if we received the money after we had issued general obligation bonds.
Right. But there's a remedy for it.
100%. There is a remedy, and there's a way to accept the money and use it for that stated purpose.
Okay. Okay.
But we wouldn't get any money unless we filed to get it. I mean, I just wonder if it's not worth doing this.
I think that there has been some effort to this, is my understanding. I think Drew just spoke to that too.
You mean that they're going for grant money?
Well, or that they have spoken to some people about getting some, I mean, they're not getting $8 million, but I think that they have spoken to some people about getting some money through Senator Keating's office. I have heard of this.
Yeah.
We have, and I would just say to date we've been unsuccessful. So we plan to fund it locally, and if we are successful, then we look at that as a great bonus.
Right.
Okay. Jeremy?
Yeah, last question, Drew, just for communications. What is tell me again, the pressing issue as to why we are doing this now? I don't doubt we need to, by the way. I just
It
need.
is phase 2. So Drew, if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so Charlie kind of touched on it. The complexity to the permitting and the access and removal of debris when it's on the beach or protruding out of the bluff. It took a lot to get to the point we're at now where there's someone actually out at Tom Nevers doing the work. This ramp that's being installed or has already been installed is essentially a temporary ramp. It won't be there forever. And so this is our opportunity to clean kind of upland, into the park further now before the ramp is gone and erosion continues and we're kind of back to square one where things are falling out onto the beach. Anything outside of 100 feet from the bluff edge requires very, very little permitting. So it's more efficient for us to also do it now and if we wait and constantly do work right at the water's edge and along the beach and the shoreline there.
Great. I see that Kathy Baird has her hand up. Kathy, did you want to make a comment?
If I could, I just joined the meeting. I had another conflict tonight, so I'm not
Is
sure
this
what
about
else.
the Tom Nevers debris removal?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I live in Tom Nevers, and I actually I went down to the beach yesterday just to see how things were going and what it looked like. A lot of work's been done, so that's terrific because it's been such an eyesore for so long. So I don't know all the discussion that happened, but I did have a question, and that was just, two questions. One is what happens for the other stuff that's still buried, but it's not in the bluff yet? Is that part of this 8 million? And the other question was, is there liability for the town for any injuries or damage or whatever for people using the beach and being hurt by the stuff that still remains there? What's the liability issue for the town?
Well, I guess I'll speak to the first part. Yes. So Kathy, the plan for phase 2 is to clean subsurface debris that's currently on land to get ahead of future problems where it's exposed and falling onto the beach. The ramp that's there now will provide the DPW essentially temporary access to go down and continue to keep the beach clean after this project ends, but the ramp will not be there permanently, nor will it be a public beach access. As far as the liability, I don't know if Brian or John Giorgio want to speak to that. The goal, I suppose, is to keep it clean, keep it safe, and avoid any potential issues.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Please, John.
As with any municipal property, there is potential liability if there are conditions on that property that cause personal injury or property damage to adjoining parcels. The town, of course, maintains general liability insurance to address those kinds of issues. So, in the abstract, yes, there is liability, but the town manages that liability across all properties that it owns through liability insurance.
Thank you. Okay, with that, do we have any more discussion on Article 16? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Okay, I move to pass Article 16, the appropriation for Tom Park debris removal.
A second.
Right. And on your motion, Joanna?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
And Jill's and I. Thank you, everyone. That passes unanimously.
Thank
Okay,
you,
on the
Madam
next
Chair.
one, Drew. Thanks, Charlie and Drew. You're going to stick around for the next one, which Joanna is going to chair this portion because
Yep.
I recuse on solid waste issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Article 67 is the bylaw amendment with regard to solid waste disposal. Do we have any discussion on the article? We've heard the presentations from Mr. Williams.
So this is a different article.
Oh, it's different. Okay, great. I thought we were voting on that one.
No,
You go ahead, Drew.
I'll just
Take
give
it
a real quick background. So there has long been a bylaw pertaining to uncovered loads. Long story short, the enforcement component of that was a little bit vague as far as who could or could not enforce that in terms of the way it was referenced. I think we all understood what the intent was, but it wasn't very clear. But ultimately, the Chief Casper, police chief, opined that the way it was written really only allowed police officers to enforce civil penalties for uncovered loads. So this kind of cleans that language up and allows either myself as the director of the DPW or my designee, most likely Chris Lowe, solid waste manager, to issue fines for uncovered loads to the solid waste facility. We do have a litter problem island-wide, like every community in America, but a lot of that seems to be attributed to hauling of waste to the solid waste facility. So we're hoping to curb that a little bit better than we currently do.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question. I was just curious how many tickets get issued a year for this?
That, Jeremy, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Jeremy, I don't have that data in front of me. I think it's pretty well known that our police department does station a cruiser in the little pull-off area right after Eel Point before the bike path crossing, especially on weekends when there's hundreds or thousands of people coming to the solid waste facility. As far as how many tickets are issued, I'm not quite sure. But I also know the police department certainly has their hands full with a lot of other things, and pretty easy for something that's more important to come up. So this just kind of allows us to,
And away from
enforce the bylaw a little better.
Are you aware of a real problem that you guys can rectify here? I mean,
Yeah,
I think this is a good idea, but I was just curious the nature of the problem.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I can tell you from a DPW perspective, we pick up trash from public receptacles downtown and at public beaches. And then, our crews also pick up roadside litter. And for every day that we pick up roadside litter on Pulpus or Milestone, we probably spend 3 or 4 days picking up on Mattocket, for example. So, the concentration of litter is certainly it's like a breadcrumb trail leading to the dump. We see it being behind vehicles, trucks, construction vehicles, dumpsters being hauled to the solid waste facility. So we're hoping that ideally a couple tickets goes a long way, and people change, their behavior, decision making, and kind of do a better job going forward.
Right.
Any other questions from the committee?
I got a motion.
I second it.
Okay. We're just going to go through. Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris, Martin,
Aye.
and Joanna, aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jill, you're back in charge.
Okay. Thanks for doing that. Is Chris still on? Oh yeah, he's there. Sorry, Chris, I didn't see you.
Yeah, no, my space bar just wouldn't unmute me for a minute.
Okay, good. I was worried that was only 4 votes, and I was like, oh no, it's not good. Okay, so next up, I think we have Tracy McDonald to talk about the real estate articles. And like the articles in the past, if everyone's good with this, I think we want to go through
The articles and then
all 5 of them, so 76 to 81. And then we can potentially make a motion on all 5, or if you all want to pull one out that, you don't want to do, we can do that. But after each one that she discusses, Tracy, we'll pause and let people ask questions after each one, since they're all so unique.
Okay.
If that's okay. Thanks for coming.
Sure. Less controversial than everything else.
Oh my gosh.
Just wait.
Who knew? Who knew?
Some levity.
We'll see about that.
I'll start with number 76. That's a home rule petition for School Street, which is a public path actually that runs from Western Ave down to the Surfside Beach. This is a previous existing home rule petition, and if you're not familiar, if the legislation doesn't pass, we have to pretty much re-up it at every town meeting. So this isn't a new article. This is a redo of an existing article. It is currently in the works at the state, but we don't want to miss the window of opportunity if they decide to pass it. So we want to make sure that we have the home rule petition to back it up.
Any questions from the committee on that one? Okay, keep going, Tracy. Thank you.
Okay, the next one is number 77. This is for Grove Lane. This was also an existing article that was proposed in 2024 and 2025. That was a combo article that included some parcels on Low Beach Road to go to the land bank as well. It is currently actively being debated with the legislature, and Moakley's office has reached out to me several times. There was the Low Beach parcels were sort of tying up the ability to get this Grove Lane parcel done, which is extremely straightforward. So I rewrote the article to just be for Grove Lane, hoping that we can get the legislature by July. So this parcel is currently in the care and custody of the Conservation Commission, and we're proposing that it transfer to the land bank for the same purposes. And pursuant to Article 97, that requires legislation.
Great. Any questions from the committee on that? All right, keep going, Tracy.
Okie dokie. Number 79 is a conservation restriction on Sherburne Commons. So originally, when Sherburne Commons was developed, there was a natural heritage permit, which required a dedication of a conservation restriction over certain parcels of land. And I thought that Steve, did I give another map that sort of shows the restriction? I thought I emailed you a different one.
I can quickly try.
It wasn't a GIS. It was like a regular plan. I might not have. I thought I did, but that's okay. So when we do this, it's kind of like a mitigation thing where we have to dedicate a certain amount of land for conservation in a certain amount of square footage. And so in order to be in compliance with the natural heritage permit, we need the authority to be able to grant that conservation restriction. Okay, and the next one is number 80. That is related to the Tacoma Green project. Similar to article we had last year for the dorm, we will need to grant National Grid an easement to put the electrical equipment to support the project in the layout of Waite Drive. And so this is an article related to the authority to do that.
So that's just the authority and not doesn't have anything to do with who pays for that.
No, it does not, Jill, or Chair. Sorry.
I'm Jill. That's good.
So, no, the National Grid will develop a plan and work with the contractors for the location. And then all this does is give us the authority to grant the easement. The project will pay for the cost of it. And then Article 81, which is the last one of the 5, is Newtown Cemetery. So just a little bit of background. For a long time, the Cemetery Commission has been asking for this Newtown Cemetery to be dedicated as a public cemetery. It's actually owners unknown. And so this article will grant the authority for the town to clear the title and then be able to convey it into the care and the custody of the Cemetery Commission so that it's officially in their control. And
this is
that's
something, this is something they've been managing to date.
They have been managing it to date.
It's just a ratification of what exists.
It is, yeah.
Great. Any other questions on any of these articles?
I just have one question, which is on number 79 with the regard to Sherburne Commons. Just how come that's coming up now? Like, what's the timing of this?
So, originally we had the planning of Island Home, and so if Island Home was to go forward, for instance, it might need to be expanded, this conservation restriction, but it came up in relation to that planning that we had to choose somebody who can hold the CR. So that's part of it too. And I believe the land bank has very graciously agreed to do that.
Okay.
If it's needed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Tracy, thank you. That was a little easier than some previous years too. A little quicker. does anyone want to make a motion, and we can do all 5 of these at once? So that would be 76, 77, 79, 80, and 81.
So moved.
Second,
On your motion, Martin?
Aye.
I think it was Martin. Jeremy?
aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And Jill's and I motion to adopt those 5 articles is unanimous. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got our last 2. They're both sponsored by Curtis Barnes, and it occurs to me, I don't see him online. Stephen, was he online at all?
No, he was not, I don't believe.
I don't normally see him online, and I think it's possible he doesn't know that we're online. He might have missed that. So I see that Rachel's on, and Rachel, did you and Eleanor want to talk about the Boynton Lane?
I wasn't here to specifically talk about the
Okay.
Lane acquisition because Mr. Barnes was proposing that, but I was here to provide input on the land bank, working with neighbors and willingness to do so.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. So he's not here. I hate to do this, but I think I would like to wait for him. He comes to all our meetings, and it, to me personally, just seems disrespectful to not review that until he's back. I think he's probably, again, probably wanted to come in person.
I agree,
Since
Joe.
he comes to all of them in person. So I'd like to wait on these 2 articles, and I'm sorry about that, Stephen, but I think we owe him that. And Rachel, we'll let you know when he comes back, if that's okay.
No problem at all. We did.
I'm sorry you waited. I thought maybe it was something else, and then it occurred to me at the end it was probably for that.
No, I have met with him, and I do think it's appropriate for him to be here to discuss these articles. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. Committee reports. Just so you all know, the Capital Committee did submit their final report. It got approved today. It's going to select board tomorrow, and we'll have that on an agenda sometime soon. And possibly we don't have it on for Thursday, but it's possible we could do it Thursday. So I'll update you all about that. Or if you've all read it already, it's in the packet for the select board, and we can forward it around to you as well in its final form.
Could someone please, I looked on the website yesterday. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I think they only just put it up. So it'll be the final is what we have now, and we'll send it to you, Joe. We'll send it to everyone on the committee.
Thank you.
I know you've been asking for it. Any other committee reports? Okay. Is there any other business? The date of our next meeting is this Thursday at 4 p.m. It's hybrid, so it's in the trailer and online. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Don't move.
Don't beat each other up to get to that. On your motion, Joe?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye.
And Jill's and I. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time. See you Thursday.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you.